So you talked about sacred medicine work, and for me, a question really is, we talked a bit about the how it is exploited in a touristic way to some extent. You talked about that it is scarce, and really, what I experience a lot now, for example, in the West, is that, for example, ayahuasca has become very fashionable, even to the extent that I hear about cool Berlin startups doing ayahuasca retreats for their team retreat once a year and things like that. So, what's your position on that? How do you differentiate what is sacred medicine work, what is recreational use, and how important also do you find the context of how medicine is taken apart now from the dieta, what we have talked about, and in which context it is taken? Do you think it makes a difference if the medicine is taken in the jungle, or if it's taken in the West, maybe even in a city? Does it make a difference at all? Doesn't it make any difference? So it's a few questions really, but I think they're all connected.
Yeah, definitely. So what I observe and what you also mentioned is the popularity around those sacred medicines. So first of all, what are sacred medicines? Let's say for the history of humanity, human beings in different traditions and cultures have used what Mother Earth is giving them to connect with the spirits or other dimensions. Might it be magic mushrooms or peyote in Mexico, ayahuasca in South America, so many other possibilities all over the world. So sacred medicine was always used in a context of indigenous tradition, for healing or crossing over a passage like a rite, for initiation, for consulting the spirit about something that is happening in the village, to find a solution, to connect with ancestors. So the context of sacred medicines is old and ancient, and we have to see it in its context as well. Because nowadays, when indigenous people drink ayahuasca regularly, like some tribes once a week, every Saturday, for example, I have experienced, they have this. They drink once a week all their life, let's say, ayahuasca. So it's implemented in their everyday life and culture to do so, because they may discuss something that is important for their village, or this is the way they reenact a ritual and maintain connection. And it's important to stay strong as a community to do this practice together. And they still chant the old healing songs, and they perform the old dances, and they have a strong choreography and structure around this. And they share prayer words or words of gratitude. So when we talk about sacred medicine, there's this background to it. And when we talk about sacred medicine, there's this new thing going on now, that the popular thing, that people are into it. Yeah. What I sometimes have the feeling is that people perceive those sacred medicines like, I'm going into a supermarket in the Western world, for example, in a city. Yeah. I'm going into the supermarket and I can get everything at any time in the year. And all I have to do is take it and put it into my basket and like pay for it, and then I have it. And there's a mentality about healing and approaching sacred medicines that is similar to, I'm going to the supermarket and I can get everything at any time, whatever I want and need, as long as I pay for it. But that is far away from what I have described just now, the indigenous way, the context of using sacred medicines there. Because I understand everybody who wants to consult sacred medicines to tap into a healing, to learn more about themselves, to heal something specific. We have this option nowadays. And the bridge between the indigenous, hopefully still sustainable context, there are uncontacted tribes that we don't know about, they for sure still do it like this, and the bridge to where we are at right now, we need to share information and education to make that happen. Because if we approach it in the way of the supermarket, I want a quick fix, and as long as I pay my $3,000 after 10 days, I'm going to be enlightened, that's problematic. Yeah. Because the approach oftentimes is the approach of consuming. I consume something, so I will feel better. Yeah, so I'm going to drink ayahuasca and it's going to heal me and I'm going to feel better. But this is not the truth. I would not say that when you start drinking ayahuasca and when you drink ayahuasca and you drink it a lot and you drink it for many years that you're going to heal. I think that's not true. What ayahuasca is doing, or any other sacred medicine, and what the person that is like in between is doing, the person that is the healer who is creating that space that you can experience it, they are tools and they are helpers. They support you to enter into something where you can perceive and learn something about yourself, where you have a possibility to enter the realm of understanding. Yeah, because what happens when you work with sacred medicine, something opens up, something gets moved, you see something. You usually see it though from the perspective of where you are right now, in your perception, in your mind. Yeah, but still, when the ceremony is over, the hardest part is starting, because you have to go back home and you got to implement and integrate what you have learned in that ceremony, or what you have seen there, because that's the hardest part. You have to change, and you have to commit to changing your life in the 3-dimensional. It's easy to drink ayahuasca, to sit in a sacred space of ceremony that gets hold, and to experience it. It's a challenge, but it's easier than implementing the teachings in your everyday life. And also oftentimes what happens is that it's hard to work with these medicines. It's not always a clear message you receive from ayahuasca or something like this. What do you do with what you experience? Because oftentimes in the old way, if you want a healing for yourself, you would never even drink the medicine. The traditional way also was that you were consulting the healer of your village with the intention to heal, and he would make a ceremony for you, but he would drink the medicine. Only he. And you would sit in that circle, or she, yeah? And that person would consult the medicine and work on you, but you would be just sitting there, or maybe you wouldn't even be sitting there, maybe you would be just in your hut, in your bed, because you wouldn't be able to walk or something. But the traditional way is actually that. But nowadays everybody, we come like running to drink those medicines. But what is the context behind it? Because it's challenging to get it, and it's a quick shift that happens in your whole system. How do you really digest all of that information? This shouldn't be taken lightly to work with the sacred medicines, especially because they are sacred. And I know that people, we are like, our nature is that we are curious. We want to try things out, right? And that's okay. But as I see it, if you have a specific intention, to work with a specific medicine, or even more than one medicine, stay with that intention and remind yourself. Healing takes a long time. It's not going to be done in one day or in 1 year. You know, the more medicine I'm drinking, the more I understand that the healing happens in different ways, and not just when I'm drinking medicine. So you have to be aware that, of course, it's beautiful to dwell in those realms of non-dualistic Buddhist peace and love and light, and we all want to be there all the time. That's also our nature. It can become addictive to always be in those enchanted spaces, and we know that a lot of psychoactive molecules, alkaloids, they help us fight depression. They make us more light, more happy, more enchanted. And of course, we want more of that. And that's also natural and normal. But we have to really check in the purpose for why am I joining that ceremony, or why do I want to do that medicine work? Because usually people start with a very specific thing in their life. And then what I observe is you can really get lost in keep drinking the medicines, and you maybe don't even know why. But you are just in that flow of medicine community, medicine world. You're always on that energy. You're vibrating high. You like the social aspect of it, and it's all fine. But is that the true nature of why we should work with those medicines? Because again, there's no endless supply. Someone has to regrow that ayahuasca vine. Someone has to take care of the chacruna. What about all the Kambo frogs? You know, is it really necessary to smoke a Bufo alvario's medicine 15, 30 times in a row? Is that necessary? Aren't we exploiting the medicines by not knowing why we are working with them anymore? You can drink ayahuasca for years, but you are still the same person with the same problems. Why is that? Because you have not done your work in this world here, in the 3D. And that is the challenge, and that is the painful thing. And this is a tendency that I see, and we have to be very aware and careful around this. Because I'm not talking of a theory, I'm sharing something I have been going through myself. That's why I can share it.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. So what I always say, there is a difference between drug use and drug abuse. And in between lines now, you have talked about this, but to be very specific, could you point out what your definition or what your ideas are of the difference of the sacred medicine use in a healthy way and compared to what it would be in a recreational way? I'm sure it's not cannot be a clear-cut definition, but what are your thoughts? How would you differentiate what is the recreational use and what it needs and what it takes to be medicine work that is really in where the use of the medicine is not recreational but really medical or sacred, however you would like to call it.
Yeah, maybe we can even say therapeutic, a therapeutic approach towards a recreational approach. So a general thing that I believe applies to making out the difference here is taking breaks. Taking breaks from working with sacred medicines and using those breaks when you are not always going into the DMT worlds, you know, but where you are staying in the 3D and tapping into what you have experienced from this perspective and from this dimension. Because traditionally, and if we study a little bit about ancient civilizations, the aim should not be that we always keep drinking ayahuasca until the end of the life, or we like constantly need to consult the medicines. That shouldn't be the aim. It shouldn't be that you're going to drink ayahuasca for the next 20, 30, 40 years, unless you are not living in a, unless you are living in a indigenous context, like in a village where this is the tradition, and this is how you maintain your connection to the spirit. Well, this is another story. I'm talking about really the someone coming from the Western world and looking for healing. I don't believe that these medicines are out there and that Pachamama, Mother Earth, is giving us these possibilities so that we always now going to drink it and use them all the time. I don't think so. I believe you have to check in with yourself for why you are doing what you're doing, as I already mentioned. What do I want to work on? What do I want to heal? But taking breaks from these medicines. Because I also had a time in my life when I was so much in that flow that I was using specific medicines super frequently. But on the other hand, also, if you share the medicines, maybe that's another story if you work with it a lot yourself. But I personally believe it's good to take breaks where, like, of a year, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 years, and really try to implement those teachings, no matter how hard it seems, and how much easier it would seem now to drink a cup of ayahuasca in a ceremony and get more loosened up and relaxed again about something that we couldn't solve. But healing takes time. And I was working a lot in my ceremonies in all these 7 years now on my relationship with my parents, for example, you know, like seeing a lot of visions, having a lot of energy work happening around that, purging a lot of those old energies that have not been serving me. But the true practice comes when I meet my parents in real life and I'm spending time with them. And this is where I can put it into practice. And this is where the real test is happening. And I appreciate the possibility that we can do it in the 3-dimensional. But if it's just about getting high and being always in that space and not being able to take the break, being afraid of taking a break from those medicines, because you are not just drinking ayahuasca, you are much more than that. You should still see it in its whole sacredness, but as a helping tool with a limited supply on the planet. And we also have to feel into the idea of sharing. Yeah, there is a very sad story going on around the Bufo alvarius toad in the Mexican desert. Yeah, this species will go extinct. The medicine is very popular. People use it. People overuse it. Is it really necessary for one person to smoke it 40 times? Why don't you just use it a couple of times and think of, okay, now more people can use the medicine I haven't used to tap into the same I have been tapping to in. And this is something that is lacking entirely, an understanding that not many people have. And that's why I was giving the example of consuming. We go into the supermarket, it's always there and we buy it. So this kind of approach, this kind of attitude is not an attitude from someone who always lives in the jungle and, you know, who lives self-sustained from the jungle in his or her village, but that comes from a Western matrix, so to say. And we have to be really careful here and always checking in with ourselves.